Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Ryan Clark always believed flying was the easiest part of his life. At 35, he was a commercial pilot for a major airline based in Denver, Colorado, spending 1 week a month crisscrossing the country and occasionally flying to international destinations. The job was demanding, the schedule unpredictable, but Ryan loved the feeling of being in control, safely guiding hundreds of people through the clouds. What he loved even more was coming home, to Jenna, his wife of 8 years, a talented and independent freelance architect, to Lily, his 5-year-old daughter who waited for him at the door with a smile that melted away any built-up fatigue, and often to Derek Stone, his best friend since college, a successful personal trainer and fitness entrepreneur who, over the years, had become an inseparable part of the Clark family. Derek was always around. He trained Jenna for free 3 times a week, played with Lily in the backyard, helped Ryan fix things around the house whenever he was on the ground. He was the honorary uncle, the friend who never missed birthdays, barbecues, or holidays. Ryan trusted him completely. He trusted Jenna just as much. They were the pillars of his life, the people who made his absences bearable and his homecomings truly feel like coming home. Their 8th wedding anniversary fell on a Friday in October. Ryan had planned everything in advance, adjusting his schedule to make sure he'd be home on the exact date. He returned from a 5-day trip to Miami on Thursday night, got a few hours of rest, and left early Friday morning to pick up the gift he'd ordered weeks earlier, a delicate diamond necklace, something Jenna had mentioned in passing months before as they passed a jewelry store downtown in Denver. Ryan remembered everything she said, treating each detail like flight coordinates. That night, after putting Lily to bed in her pink room decorated with ballerina drawings, Ryan set the dinner table, candles, red wine, Jenna's favorite dish, grilled salmon with asparagus and Sicilian lemon risotto, a recipe he'd learned to make especially for her. Jenna came downstairs around 8, wearing a navy blue dress Ryan loved, her brown hair loose over her shoulders. She smiled when she saw the table, but Ryan noticed something off about her smile, a hesitation, a weight he couldn't quite place at the moment. They ate dinner making small talk, about Lily, about her work, about the architecture projects she had underway. Ryan sensed that Jenna seemed distant, but he chalked it up to exhaustion. She always became more introspective when he traveled a lot. When they finished eating, Ryan stood up, pulled the small blue velvet box from his jacket pocket, and placed it in front of Jenna. She opened it slowly, her eyes widening at the sight of the necklace. "Ryan, it's beautiful," she said, but her voice lacked the emotion he'd expected. He took her hand across the table, his heart full. "You deserve this and so much more. In fact, pick anything else you want as an extra gift. Anything at all. Seriously, Jenna, anything that would make you happy." Ryan was thinking of a trip, maybe to Europe, something Jenna had always said she wanted to do. Or a remodel of her home office, which needed an update. He was ready to give her the world. Jenna lowered her eyes to their intertwined hands, took a deep breath, and when she looked up again, there was a cold resolve in her gaze that Ryan had never seen before. "I want a night with Derek." Ryan blinked, certain he'd misheard. The sound of the candles crackling on the table seemed amplified in the silence that followed. "What? A night with Derek?" Jenna's voice was steady, no hesitation. "You said anything." Ryan felt as if the floor had vanished beneath him, the same sensation he'd had once during severe turbulence over the Atlantic when the plane dropped 300 feet in seconds. But this time there was no seatbelt, no protocol, no control. He let go of her hand and leaned back in his chair. "You're kidding." "I'm not." Jenna held his gaze. "There are feelings involved, Ryan. Derek understands me in a way you haven't been able to lately. I know it sounds terrible, but before I make any decision about our marriage, I need to explore this. I need to know if it's real." Ryan's throat tightened, his thoughts jumbled. He wanted to scream, flip the table over, wake up and find it had all been a nightmare. But Jenna was right there, real, asking permission to cheat. Explore this? His voice came out hoarse, incredulous. You're talking about my best friend. The guy who's at our house almost every day. Lily's uncle. I know who he is. Jenna crossed her arms defensively. That's exactly why I'm being honest with you. I could have hidden it, lied, but I'm giving you a choice. Ryan stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the wooden floor. He walked to the living room window, looking out at the quiet suburban street in Denver, at the neighboring houses with their lights on, normal families living normal lives. How had everything collapsed so quickly? He turned back to face Jenna. You're giving me a choice. What choice, Jenna? Between accepting being cheated on or ending our marriage? She didn't answer, just looked away. And in that glance away, Ryan felt the first real stab of cold, sharp suspicion. Jenna wasn't asking for permission. She was confessing. Or worse, she was trying to formalize something that had already been happening. Ryan took the stairs 2 at a time, his heart pounding erratically. He walked into the bedroom he'd shared with Jenna for 8 years and went straight to her nightstand, where her phone was charging. He picked it up, unlocked it with the password he'd always known, Lily's birthday, and opened the messaging app. He didn't have to search far. The conversations with Derek were right at the top of the list, more recent even than the ones she'd had with him. Ryan started scrolling through the messages, and each line felt like a knife to the chest. Can't wait for tomorrow's workout. You know it's not just about exercise. Ryan's traveling next week. We'll have time. You make me feel alive again. There were photos, shots of Jenna from angles she'd never sent him. Photos Derek replied to with explicit emojis, promises, and raw desire. Ryan kept scrolling, hands shaking, nausea rising. The messages went back months, June, May, April. The betrayal wasn't recent. It was systematic, deliberate, nurtured during all those trips Ryan had taken to support the family, to give Jenna the freedom to work freelance, to make sure Lily had everything she needed. He found a message from 2 weeks earlier, while he'd been flying to Seattle. Lily was asleep. It was perfect. Ryan dropped the phone onto the bed, bent forward with his hands on his knees, struggling to breathe. Derek had been in his house. In his bed. While his daughter slept in the next room. Ryan walked back downstairs, phone in hand. Jenna was still sitting at the table, head lowered, as if bracing for the storm. He set the phone in front of her, the screen lighting up her face with the exposed messages. How many times? Jenna looked up, and for the first time, Ryan saw fear in her eyes. Ryan, How many times, Jenna? His voice was dangerously calm now, the kind of calm that comes right before irreversible decisions. I don't know. A few. She reached for the phone, but Ryan pulled it away. A few. Ryan repeated the word, testing its weight. A few times you brought my best friend into my house, into my bed, while I was out working to keep all this together. He gestured around him, taking in the house, the life they'd built. And Lily? Was she here? She was asleep, Ryan. She never knew. Oh, well then. The biting sarcasm finally slipped out. My 5-year-old daughter was sleeping just a few feet away while her mother cheated on her father. That makes it all better. Jenna stood up, tears finally streaming down her face. I didn't plan this. It just happened. I felt alone, you're always traveling, and Derek was there. No, Ryan cut her off, voice firm. Don't put this on me. I work to support this family. I always came back. I've always been faithful. I've always loved you. You chose this. Both of you did. He pulled out his own phone and, without thinking twice, dialed Derek. It was almost 10 at night, but Derek answered on the third ring, cheerful and relaxed. Hey, Ryan. What's up? Ryan put the call on speaker, staring straight at Jenna as he spoke. Derek, are you going to tell her, or should I? There was a pause on the other end, a hesitation. Tell her what, man? That you've been sleeping with my wife for months. That you betrayed my trust. That you're a piece of shit. Ryan's voice trembled now, the anger finally breaking through his forced calm. Derek stammered, trying to form an excuse, but Ryan didn't wait. I know everything. I read the messages. Saw the photos. So listen carefully, you're never coming near my family again. Never speaking to me again. Never stepping foot in this house again. It's over. He hung up before Derek could respond and tossed the phone onto the couch. Jenna was crying now, sobbing, trying to move closer. Ryan, please, we can talk about this. We can try therapy, we can. You're leaving this house tonight. Ryan spoke quietly, but each word was a final sentence. And Lily stays with me. You can't do that. Jenna shouted, her voice rising for the first time. She's my daughter. And you brought your lover into this house while she was sleeping. Do you really think a judge is going to like hearing that? Ryan grabbed Jenna's phone again and started taking screenshots of the conversations. I've got it all here, every message, every photo, every lie. Jenna sank to her knees, hands covering her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But Ryan was already dialing another number, her parents. When Jenna's mother answered, worried by the late call, Ryan explained everything with a coldness he didn't know he had. 10 minutes later, Jenna's parents were on their way. When they arrived, her mother came in crying and embraced her daughter, but Jenna's father, a serious man and an army veteran, looked at Ryan with deep sorrow and gave a slow nod. You're doing the right thing, he said quietly. Take care of Lily. We'll take care of her. He nodded toward Jenna. That night, Jenna left the house with a small suitcase, escorted by her parents. Ryan went up to Lily's room, sat in the chair beside her bed, and watched his daughter sleep, her chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. She didn't know anything yet. And Ryan would do everything in his power to shield her from the chaos that lay ahead. On Saturday morning, Ryan called a child custody attorney a fellow pilot had recommended years earlier during a similar case. The firm handled emergencies, and Ryan managed to get an appointment for Monday. He spent the weekend caring for Lily, keeping things normal, taking her to the park, making pancakes for breakfast. Lily asked about her mother once, and Ryan said she was visiting her grandparents. The girl accepted it without question, used to Ryan's absences and, he now realized, probably also used to Jenna's appointments or girl time. On Monday, Ryan sat in the elegant office of attorney Jonathan Pierce, a man in his mid-50s with a solid reputation in Denver. Ryan presented all the evidence, screenshots of messages, photos, dates that matched his work trips. He explained how Derek had frequented their home, how Lily knew him, how the affair had happened under the very roof where his daughter slept. Jonathan listened carefully, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed the documents. When Ryan finished, the lawyer leaned back in his leather chair. In Colorado, adultery isn't automatically decisive in property division, but it can influence custody decisions if there's evidence that a parent's behavior negatively impacts the child. You've got a strong case, Ryan. Bringing a lover into the home, exposing the child to an emotionally unstable environment, fundamental breach of trust, a history of lies, will seek primary custody for you with supervised visitation for her initially. Ryan nodded, throat tight. I just want to protect my daughter. And that's exactly what we'll do. The divorce was officially filed on Tuesday. Jenna received the papers at her parents' house, and according to her lawyer, she was devastated. She tried calling Ryan several times, but he never answered. All communication now went through their attorneys. Jenna argued she deserved shared custody, that she was a good mother, that the affair didn't affect her ability to care for Lily. But Jonathan Pierce was relentless. He presented the evidence to the judge, the texts, the timeline, the potential emotional impact on a child who might eventually learn her mother had an affair with someone she called uncle. The preliminary hearing took place 3 weeks later in a family court downtown in Denver. Ryan was nervous but prepared. Jenna arrived with her parents and lawyer, eyes red, clearly shaken. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a stern expression, reviewed all documents, heard both sides, and at the end granted Ryan temporary primary custody, with bi-weekly supervised visitation for Jenna until a full psychosocial evaluation could be completed. Jenna left the courtroom crying, supported by her mother. Meanwhile, Derek began facing consequences for his choices. Ryan didn't have to say a word. Word spread quickly through their social circle. Many of Derek's clients were couples, mutual friends of Ryan and Jenna, or people from the same gym. When they learned about the affair, especially that it involved the wife of a close friend and occurred while Ryan was working, many canceled their sessions. Derek tried to hold on to his clientele, offering discounts, but the boycott was quiet and devastating. His income dropped by more than 60% in a month. He also lost his contract with the main gym where he taught group classes after management received complaints from members. Jenna faced her own losses. As a freelance architect, she relied on referrals and a professional network she'd built over the years in Denver. Once the reason for the divorce became known, and in a city like Denver, where professional and social circles often overlap, that happened fast, Jenna saw contracts disappear. A major corporate client, who happened to be Ryan's friend from an aviation club, terminated an office renovation project midway through. Another client, a family who'd hired Jenna to design a vacation home, simply stopped replying to emails. Her once impeccable reputation was now tarnished, not just professionally, but socially. Party invitations stopped coming. Mutual friends distanced themselves, though some quietly sent messages of support to Ryan. The months that followed were the hardest of Ryan's life. He adjusted his flight schedule, requesting shorter routes and fewer trips, even if it meant a temporary pay cut. Lily was the priority. He dropped her off at school every morning, picked her up in the afternoon, helped with homework, made dinner, read bedtime stories. On weekends, they went to the zoo, the science museum, or just stayed home watching movies. Lily gradually started asking more about her mother. Ryan never spoke badly of Jenna in front of her. He explained, in simple and honest terms, that Mommy and Daddy weren't together anymore, but that they both loved her very much. Lily accepted it, as children often do, with a resilience that both broke and strengthened Ryan's heart. Jenna saw Lily every other week, always under the supervision of a social worker or at her grandparents' house. The visits were tense at first, Lily uneasy with her mother's distance, but slowly the girl adjusted. Jenna tried a few times to speak with Ryan in person, but he kept his distance. He no longer felt anger, just a heavy sadness, deep disillusionment, and a fierce determination to protect his daughter. Derek reached out once, sending a long message apologizing, saying he never meant to hurt Ryan, that things just happened. Ryan deleted it without replying. Weeks later, he heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek had moved to Boulder, trying to restart his career there. He and Jenna didn't stay together. According to Jenna's parents, who maintained polite contact with Ryan for Lily's sake, their relationship collapsed under the weight of guilt and consequences. They tried briefly, but it was impossible to build anything on the ruins they'd created. A year after that terrible anniversary night, Ryan stood in the backyard watching Lily play with the dog they'd adopted 3 months earlier, a golden Labrador named Buddy. The girl laughed, running barefoot through the grass, the dog barking and jumping around her. For the first time in months, Ryan felt something close to peace. The house was quieter now, no Jenna, no Derek, no false promises of a life that had never been as perfect as he'd believed. But there was honesty now. Clarity. Lily had been officially granted primary custody to him after the psychosocial evaluation concluded Ryan provided the more stable environment. Jenna now had unsupervised visitation, though still limited to alternate weekends. She seemed to be rebuilding her life, taking on smaller projects, living alone in a small apartment. Ryan didn't wish her harm. He just wished she'd stay far enough away to not destroy anything else. Ryan was rebuilding too. He'd started flying longer routes occasionally again, always confident Lily was well cared for, either by his parents, who'd moved closer, or by a trusted nanny he'd hired. He started therapy, working through the betrayal, the loss of his friend, the end of his marriage. He made new friends at work, pilots who shared similar stories, who understood the complexities of maintaining relationships while living in the air. One night, after tucking Lily in, Ryan sat on the porch with a beer, gazing at the Rocky Mountains in the distance, lit by moonlight. He thought about Jenna, about Derek, about the life they might have had. He thought about how trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. He thought about how he'd offered Jenna anything, and she'd chosen the one thing that would destroy everything. But he also thought about Lily, sleeping peacefully in her room, safe, loved, protected. He thought about the dog snoring at his feet. He thought about the flights he'd take the following week, the clouds he'd cross, the places he'd still see. Life went on, hurt, scarred, but it went on. Ryan Clark had learned, in the most painful way possible, that not every storm can be avoided. But he'd also learned that even after a fall, it's possible to find solid ground again. And that loyalty, truth, and genuine love aren't negotiable. They have no price. And they should never, ever be mistaken for weakness. He finished his beer, stood up, and went back inside, locking the door behind him. The night was cold in Denver, but inside that house, there was finally real warmth. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.